Today I'm going to talk about Instagram as a space inhabited by dancers and choreographers, and I will specifically focus on lockdown features of this dance digitalization process. I will first talk about some Instagram features that define the interaction with platform. They're a bit obvious, but still. And then I'll discuss physical spaces in which dance is now happening, and we'll move on further to what is as seen through cameras. So first of all, Instagram format prefers vertical orientation of the screen, and the way buttons and menus are positioned does not welcome a user to rotate the screen, meaning that this as well defines the way a dancer would move. So it wouldn't include much horizontal movement, but rather vertical one. So yeah, this defines as well the way a dancer would record and post stories or conduct lives on their pages. And second, Instagram is rarely used for conducting online classes, but Zoom is widely used as a platform and thus advertised through Instagram instruments and platform, thus becoming interconnected. The feed hasn't changed its functions, and the outlook, dancers use it either as a space of professionally taken photos of them, as you can see on the slide, or as a personal diary, or a mix between the two, really. The space of where the dancing is happening has changed drastically. With closure of theatres and various repetition halls, we've seen dancers performing at home. And thus, dance assumed less movement within the space and became less stretched in space, but condensed to fit a vertical frame of the screen. Moreover, videos or photos are usually shot from the same point, so the viewer sort of gets used to the landscape of dance. And sometimes, however, dancers move outside and perform in the open air, changing our perspective of it. Observed from home, dance becomes the metaphor for freedom of movement in a wider sense. As I mentioned earlier, even in this not contained open space and the possibility of vast scale of performance, it will be limited to the position of camera. Without an extra person filming, dance on Instagram becomes quite a lonely experience and a less multidimensional one as well. However, during the lockdown, some dancers and choreographers took part in either live talks online or in projects showing their everyday life and routines. On the one hand, they came closer to their audience while controlling the narrative at the same time. On the other hand, it can be quite a limited interaction with few viewers responding and the majority just silently observing and distancing themselves socially and just literally in all senses, distancing themselves. In lockdown, we often see dancers not in costumes designed for stage, but rather in pieces designed as sportswear or homeware. We've seen bathrobes, hoodies, leggings, t-shirts, sweatpants tucked in the socks, jokingly distinguishing feature of contemporary dancers. None of this would be seen on stage, so the viewer becomes a witness of a backstage process signified by clothing, but without a stage itself. Another point that I find rather interesting is that digital technologies, including Instagram and especially Instagram, encourages playing around with colors. So some dancers prefer using black and white color range, draining the colors from what we see and adding drama, and perhaps nostalgically induced compassion towards the image. Some use the opportunities of diverting colors, as you can see on the slide, into the opposite or a negative, as if on the film, accentuating the artificiality and unsettling, abnormal feeling of going to the digital world where we maybe don't belong, maybe not. That's an open question. Much of the dance improvisation and dancing itself happens through Instagram stories mechanism, and a lot of the time it's not saved in highlights to be influencing the way we record dance. To a certain extent, it saves the volatility or instability inherent to dance, although it is designed as an art form to be reproduced. The discussions of how to record dance have not ceased to exist. So that's also an open question as of now. In other words, unless decided by dancer otherwise, Instagram stories allow experiencing a particular dance only within 24-hour frame, and even less time frame is given to a live stream unless saved as an IGTV. Right, moving on to the concluding remarks. It's all observations at this point. So I think it shows some interesting trends that have been in dance for a while. So they're not brand new, such as limited temporality of experience in a performance, stage effects that were brought even further with digital possibilities of playing with colors and color schemes, rather limited interaction with audience, and there is a social media tendency towards more openness and in a way honesty in Instagram. So dancing at home in one's own sportswear and among cupboards or with a bed in the background feeds quite neatly into this trend. I have to say that my observations were defined by personal preferences, though these are people that I am actually subscribed to. And this presentation sort of grew from all the time spent online and on social media platforms during self-isolation. So I'm more than open for discussion and feedback of any kind, and hopefully you can see my contact details, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. Questions, questions and answers, you see. Questions and comments, please. Let me see if there are any hands raised.
I have a physical hand.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. Good. Physical hands.
Linda, thank you so much, and also for mentioning Ballet Moskva, which I always also like and follow. And in your last slide, there is the picture for the last work, the last creation, actually, which has been done online. Прощай, старый мир, goodbye the old world, meaning hello the new world. And I think it's one of the best and the most successful examples of creating something online, which involves bodies but also some very sophisticated visual effects, and it's going on in real time. And I think it's a very good way to show that the internet doesn't always spoil contact, closeness, and presentation. Do you agree? Have you seen this film?
Right, so I'm going to first of all say that yes, I have not seen that, unfortunately.
Well, you'll have a chance tomorrow.
Yeah, I will, and I am really intrigued by this, and I really want to see this, especially because in one of his live streams with the Context Festivals, Vladimir Varnava, the choreographer of this piece, was really keen to go online and digitalize, and he was all in to this trend, and he was really excited about it and quite quite positive about the whole thing. So that's very, I find it interesting that I'm not one of those people who are objecting to observing dance online or observing recorded dance. I think that Walter Benjamin's perspective of the aura of the piece is quite challenged right now. This is a very interesting moment. I think it's just exciting.
Thank you. Any comments or questions?
I see physical hand. One more
physical
time.
hand. Oh, good, good.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciated that. I just want to say a little bit about the vertical frame, in that, again, depending upon the person who's filming, you can place the angle at a whole host of different possibilities. And again, as long as you understand understand this kind of limitations and almost muddiness of this particular, and the vulnerability of this particular, it can be something that you can associate with. And I thought it was very interesting what you were talking about, clothing and colors, because clothing, again, for a lot of postmodern and a lot of more contemporary work, they want something that is more, quote unquote, as you were saying, honest or more natural or more everyday pedestrian, and they're not interested in the costume per se, or they are interested in the costume, but it has a particular type of lens or a particular kind of quality. And the colors themselves in this kind of what you said about the volatility, I think it's almost yielding a kind of abstraction, which I find really, really interesting. So this kind of unnoticed becomes stretched, almost like matter. And by playing around with those effects, we don't, our particular inside worlds can have more expansion through that kind of play of color and play of abstraction. Yeah. But thank you, appreciate it.
That's a very interesting comment. I think that the reason I talked about angles was that usually dancers are just placing the phone or camera in one space, and that's it. That's what we see in stories or something. If you go outside, play around, but
yeah, I think it's just a little bit more naive, and they're not really attuning to it. I'm working presently with a colleague, and in fact, we're working with archiving, and it's specifically how do we yield the sensorial experience through the virtual lens, and so it's not only body, but it's also other images in collage with one another.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Susan. There is comment from Zemfira Salamova. Maybe this is very off topic, but in connection to dancing as freedom, was it interesting for you to watch the reaction to the Russian music video "Crying Listening to Techno"? Many Instagram users were recording themselves dancing to it, taking after the people in the music video who are dancing on balconies.
Yeah, thank you. That's interesting. So the thing is, I did see the video, the original itself, and I think it just contributed to the whole narrative of people going on balconies and singing operas or performing in a whole orchestra around the neighborhood. However, I haven't really traced the reaction of Instagram users, and dancers were not really the ones that I follow. That's really limited, I have to say. I'm very subjective, but the ones that I follow didn't really tune into this. But yeah, it will be interesting to see it. Yeah.
Okay, Linda, thank you so much for your presentation, and colleagues for your comments and thoughts.